Maine has a number of abandoned places, hidden in plain sight. Today, we travel strangely enough to the middle of the Kennebec River, to a small island that used to be known as Perkins Plantation, but now is better known as Swan Island, a nature reserve. So come along as we explore the remnants of what was left of this once small town. Episode 8. Abandoned. Perkins Plantation. Because Perkins Plantation is in the middle of the Kennebec River, you can't simply drive over to it. There is no bridge connecting it. But it turns out you can book a small boat ride, which I did, in order to check this place out. So all it takes is a quick hop over the Kennebec River, and you'll be right there on the dock, ready to explore.
Hello, welcome back to Stranger Maine. Today in our Abandoned series, I'm bringing you here to Swan Island, just off Richmond. So, abandoned usually means someplace that's left behind. Well, it is. Swan Island has a very long history, and at some point, they had a pretty good-sized inhabitant group. It was its own township at one point. It was an island that was used by the Abenaki. It had a lot of history behind it. Currently, there are still structures and things standing, as you can see from the house behind me, but no one lives here full-time, so it meets our definition of abandonment for this particular series. So let's start with some history. The island predates, of course, European settlers, no question about that. It was used a lot by the Abenaki tribe. This land has lots of deer, wildlife, there's ponds here, trees, there's farming resources. This would have been a great spot to set up in the warmer months in order to get whatever you wanted, whether you need to grow more crops, fell some trees for wood, hunt deer. Lots of things going on here. The first recorded European settlers came in somewhere around the 1730s, and relations with the native tribes were not great at that time, as the settlers just came in and said, we're going to live here from now on. Now, there are about 5 of these houses still here on the island that were from those periods leading up to its abandonment. So I want to start with this particular house first. So come on, let's come take a look and I'll tell you a little bit about it.
The first structure we're going to visit is the Gardner-Dumeresque house. This is referred to as a salt box home, because it looks like, well, an old-time salt box, where the second floor only covers a portion of the first, hence the slant in the roof. This was constructed by Dr. Sylvester Gardner in the year 1763. It was a gift to his daughter Rebecca when she was getting married. The name Gardner might sound familiar because, yes, he also helped found the town upriver of Gardner. He was also instrumental in founding the town of Pittston. So this particular house has been used both seasonally as year-round. It is sitting there, it has been for nearly 300 years at this point, and is currently under renovation because, again, it was built in 1763. It's considered one of the very first summer homes here in the state of Maine.
Right next door to the Gardner-Dumeresque salt box house, you'll find this particular lovely home. This is the Robinson Powell House, constructed in the 1880s, about 120 years after the Gardner salt box home was created. When this house was here, this actually wasn't known as Swan Island, this was called Perkins Township. In the 1840s, the residents here had a bit of a tax dispute with the town of Dresden, which they were connected to, and decided to cut ties. So this became a 4-mile-long, 3/4-mile-wide town, known as Perkins Township. Peak residency was about 95 people near the end of the 1800s. However, the economy here was really good. They had plenty of farmland they could work, trees to fell for lumber. The Kennebec River, we were situated about in the middle of it. They could harvest ice, and they were known for their shipbuilding with a multitude of ships that were built here that were seaworthy. So the economy was good for such a small community, and things were good here for that time. Alright, so here's our last stop here at Swan Island. This is the Tubbs Red House, built about 1800. It's a lovely example of Federalist-style architecture. It's a big, square, boxy, 2-story house. Now, the Major Tubbs who built the place eventually sold it to the Red family, or his family sold it to the Red family, and they owned quite a bit of land here on Swan Island. Number of acres, they had farmlands, they had livestock, they had orchards. Life was pretty good for them. So at this point you might be wondering, so what happened? Why on earth would people leave this place? It's a lovely spot. Was it war? Was it famine? Was it fire? Was it disease? What was it? Well, the short answer is time. Ice harvesting is a fantastic business until, of course, electric refrigerators are invented and people don't have to haul large chunks of ice and put into their ice box. They can simply plug a plug into the wall and let a machine do the work for them. the ice industry started to fall apart. Lumber is great, except you have to get it off the island and where to lumber mills where it needs to be, which gets more and more expensive as time goes on. That unfortunately starts to collapse. Shipbuilding, great business. People start demanding metal ships to take out to sea instead of wood, and you don't have a source of metal. That business starts to fold in on itself. Now, around the early 1900s, there was such a decline in population from all these businesses collapsing that the Perkins township didn't even have enough people to fill all the elected positions you would need to keep a town, and it was changed to the Perkins Plantation. Farming did continue here for some time, until unfortunately the Great Depression in the 1930s. It really destroyed all of their markets. They had to actually be able to get all their produce to people who could buy it at a cost that would actually bring them in money. And when you live on an island, transportation is a huge cost. The final nail came just around the 1940s with, strangely enough, a bridge. A bridge was built upriver that circumvented this area. When that happened, ferry services changed. So the residents who were still here had no reliable method of going back and forth to the mainland to pick up supplies they needed. And that was pretty much the final straw. In the 1940s, the state of Maine purchased this land, Swan Island, and handed over its care and caretaking to the Maine Fish and Wildlife, who've been doing the job ever since.
So that's it. There's a little bit of Swan Island. If you happen to be in Maine and you're looking for a great place to take a hike, come visit the heart of the Kennebec River, hop on that ferry, and visit Swan Island. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I'll see you next time we visit more Stranger Maine.